How do you measure a country's performance? If a country has the most number of rich people, does that make it the best performing country? If a country has the strongest and the largest armed forces, does that make it the best performing country? If a country has the best educational institutions, the best healthcare facilities, does that make it the best performing country? Today, countries are benchmarked primarily on GDP, HDI, per capita income, size and strength of armed forces, just to name a few of them. But I think we should look at things differently. I think we should add a whole new paradigm to this. Why not look at happiness? Why not measure the happiness of citizens and use that as a basis for the performance of a country? I think government should use happiness as a true measure for social performance. More importantly, I think happiness should be the goal of public policy. The goal of public policy should be to increase the happiness of every citizen. Now, the first thought that comes to mind is, how do you measure happiness? I mean, what makes me happy doesn't necessarily make you happy, and vice versa. Happiness is subjective. When I was studying in college, I came across an entire area of study that was dedicated to happiness. It was called the economics of happiness, or happiness economics. And there's been great progress in measuring and quantifying happiness. So the next time someone tries to sell you a self-help book, just tell them you already have the formula for happiness. Now, I'm not the first person who came up with this idea or this concept of using happiness as a measure to check the performance of a country. Way back in 2011, the Prime Minister of Bhutan moved a resolution in the General Assembly of the United Nations. He urged member countries to measure the happiness of their citizens and use that as a guide for public policy. Since then, the United Nations has published the World Happiness Report, and in 2015 published the third edition of that report. They used 6 factors to rank countries on the basis of happiness: real GDP per capita, healthy life expectancy, having someone to count on, perceived freedom to make life choices, freedom from corruption, and generosity. Now, when I looked at this list, what I presumed was that the countries with high GDP, high HDI, and high per capita income would be the happiest countries. So let's take 3 random examples from this list. Singapore, a country that is in the top 5 and the top 10 when it comes to GDP, per capita income, and HDI, ranked 24 on the happiness list. Israel, a country that is almost always at war, ranked 11. Luxembourg, a country that continuously ranks number 1 when it comes to per capita income, didn't make it to the top 5 or the top 10. It came in at 17. Besides this report, besides the happiness report, there are independent reports that suggest that economic growth has no correlation or very little correlation to life satisfaction, well-being, and happiness. In fact, doubling growth rate does not double life satisfaction, well-being, or happiness. And the best example for this is China. Between 1990 and 2008, China grew phenomenally. In the early 90s, an average Chinese did not have a refrigerator, a washing machine, a car, or a TV. By the early 2000s, every single urban Chinese family had a washing machine, a refrigerator, at least one TV, 1 in every 10 Chinese had a car, and China had become the automotive manufacturing hub for the entire world, providing jobs to Chinese. But between 1990 and 2008, the life satisfaction, well-being, and happiness of the average Chinese remained the same. 6 independent reports have suggested that it may have even decreased during this time period. Now, I'm not I'm not suggesting that we should abandon economic growth as a policy objective. What I'm saying is that economic growth cannot be the cure-all solution for policy challenges. And some countries are taking note of this and are trying to make attempts to it, and trying to make attempts to change this. So the UAE recently appointed and created a Minister of State for Happiness. Venezuela created a Vice Ministry for Supreme Social Happiness. Ecuador created a Ministry for Bien Vivir, which means well-being or happiness. And while these are not solutions, they're still attempts. As a young politician, I want to see my country get rid of extreme poverty in my lifetime. I want to make sure that citizens have the purchasing power to lead a healthy lifestyle. I want to ensure that we can reduce this huge economic divide that has been created over the years. But what is most important to me is the approach. We have to make sure that we do not look at policy challenges from a myopic perspective of them being purely economic challenges. We have to make sure that we urge policymakers to change this discourse. World opinion today is the country with the most economic power will rule them all. But we have to move towards an era where we look at an equitable, inclusive, balanced form of economic growth that most importantly focuses on well-being, happiness, and sustainable development. While we may perceive that the world is divided, we all smile in the same language. Thank you.